Welcome to this explainer. We are diving straight into the actual economic, legal, and political bedrock of the American Republic today. Specifically, we're looking at how that foundation relied heavily on the incredible and, frankly, often overlooked influence of three exceptional women. We are going to completely debunk the modern myth that women of this era were merely passive socialites, docile wives, or, reduced to the sex object myth. Instead, we're going to see them for what they truly were, absolutely crucial architects of a brand new nation. So, let's kick things off by asking ourselves a really fundamental question. Where were the actual foundations of American power being laid down during the nation's infancy? We've all been trained to expect a certain narrative, right? The traditional founding fathers story tells us that history is made exclusively in the halls of Congress and on smoke-filled battlefields. But the on-the-ground reality, it's way more interesting. History was being actively and aggressively shaped in totally unexpected places. We're talking family farms, state courtrooms, and the elegant drawing rooms of the White House. Let's take a look at the women who ran these arenas. Section 1. Abigail, stateswoman and manager. You've likely heard this iconic quote. Back in 1776, while John Adams was away working on the Declaration of Independence, Abigail wrote to him, "If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a rebellion." Now, while she's universally famous for urging John to remember the ladies, the historical sources show her actual influence went far, far beyond this one single letter. She wasn't just asking for a seat at the table. She was actively wielding power. For starters, she managed Peacefield Farm, and this wasn't some quaint little hobby. She deliberately chose to stay in Quincy, Massachusetts to manage the property, acting as a crucial economic anchor. She secured their financial nest egg while John was away. She negotiated with tenants, made shrewd financial decisions, and handled the complex supply lines for her entire household. On top of that, she served as a razor-sharp literary critic for John's speeches, directly shaping the ideological tone of his political career. And my favorite part? She acted as a literal political lobbyist. She discreetly planted political stories in Boston newspapers to shape public opinion and defend the Adams administration from its rivals. So the big takeaway here is that Abigail acted as a vital economic manager and a remarkably savvy political operative, which completely shatters the myth of the passive First Lady. Section 2. Freeman's Fight for Freedom. Fast forward to 1780. Massachusetts drafts a new state constitution, and it includes this revolutionary phrase: "All men are born free and equal and have certain natural, essential, and unalienable rights." Now, at this exact time, a woman named Bett was enslaved in the home of a patriot named John Ashley in Sheffield. After hearing those very words read aloud and discussed, she had a brilliant, bold realization. Those words should apply to her, too. And she didn't just think about it, she took action to demand those rights. After the Constitution was drafted in 1780, Bett teamed up with Stockbridge attorney Theodore Sedgwick in 1781 and successfully sued John Ashley for her freedom. It's just incredible. She leveraged the very language of the American Revolution to dismantle her own enslavement, and the jury agreed that the new Constitution essentially outlawed slavery. This set a massive legal precedent. It directly paved the way for the 1783 Quock Walker case, which fundamentally altered the state's legal landscape forever and effectively ended slavery in Massachusetts. After winning her freedom, Bett took the name Elizabeth Freeman. She lived out the rest of her life as a free woman, buying her own property and working as a highly respected nurse and midwife. When she passed away in 1829, this powerful epitaph was carved onto her gravestone. She was born a slave and remained a slave for nearly 30 years. Yet in her own sphere, she had no superior or equal. It's an incredible reminder of her legacy as a legal trailblazer who successfully used the courts to enforce the promises of the American Revolution. Section 3. Dolley, the strategic hostess. Now, shifting gears to the White House, what's truly fascinating here is how First Lady Dolley Madison essentially weaponized the social sphere. She hosted these gatherings known as dove parties. On paper, they were just social events for congressional wives, but strategically, they were used to discuss current events and gather vital political intelligence for her husband, President James Madison. To set the perfect stage for all of this, Dolley also led a strategic renovation of the White House. She wasn't just picking out drapes, she was creating a high-level hub for political intel. She elegantly bridged the gap between the international sophistication needed to impress foreign diplomats and modest Republican values. Her drawing rooms literally became the undisputed center of Washington politics. And her strategic bravery completely peaked during the War of 1812. As British troops were literally bearing down on Washington, D.C., Dolley refused to evacuate the White House until the last possible minute. Alongside the young enslaved valet Paul Jennings, she stayed behind to secure highly sensitive government documents and priceless national treasures, including that famous portrait of George Washington. She guarded the nation's heritage under the direct threat of invasion. If that doesn't prove her role was critical to preserving the Republic's history, I don't know what does.
Section 4. Redefining American Power.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. If a farm, a state court, and a dining room can shape a nation, how should we redefine historical power today? These women, Abigail, Elizabeth, and Dolley, they prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the foundations of America weren't just built by men in powdered wigs signing documents. They were built by brilliant women managing economies, fighting massive legal battles, and running political intelligence networks. So if the true architects of the early republic wielded their power from outside the halls of Congress, where else in history are we missing the real story? Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep questioning the history you think you know.